You're very tall.
Oh, thanks.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm like, holy smokes! It's not often I get to sit next to somebody who's actually. I have to actually look up a little bit to raise my chair up a little bit more, maybe.
Well, this chair's up pretty high.
Yeah, there. That's a little bit better. All right. Well, we've been playing around a little bit with some technology in the background, and finally we've got everything set up. It is Friday morning. It's eye candy day. Can I say eye candy? No, let's not say it that way. You know what? We talk about motivation, inspiration. We talk about a lot of really great things going on. Very rarely, though, do we get to have somebody on the program who is not only a winner in certain pageants, but also going around the world and doing amazing things. And so this morning, my guest is Miss Earth Canada 2018. Jamie, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you on the show this morning. What an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm so proud to hold this title.
Fantastic. Now, you know, it's really hard. So you don't want to come across sexist with this, but you're not just another pretty face. You have done some amazing things. You're a scuba diver. You've dove probably all over the world, and you've helped out with a number of really great organizations. And yet, you're quite a young person. How old are you?
I'm 21.
21, and you've been involved with a couple of what's the best way to say it? Like working with Indigenous people, helping to preserve culture, or helping to create awareness in a couple of different places around the world. What is it that drives you to do things like that? I mean, you're 21 years old and you've been doing this stuff. I was looking at your bio. You've been doing this stuff for years. Like what? Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got to where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think it all started, I attended CCH, actually, as a high school here in Lethbridge. And as part of their Religion 30 class, you have to put in 40 hours of community service. Mm-hmm. At first, of course, every teen thinks, oh, what a drag, you know. You don't want to have to put in more work when you're already just about to graduate.
Yeah.
But I got to tag along with my grandma at the Interfaith Food Bank. And from then on, I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of fun. And then the more and more I did it, I found that I was learning more things about myself. I think when you're going into your young adult years, nobody really has anything figured out and you're just trying to find yourself. And it really reflects on Gandhi's quote, you know, you can find yourself by losing yourself in the service of others. So I just continued with it and kept working through. So.
Well, fantastic. But I mean, that's sort of like the tip of the iceberg. What is it? What was it that spoke to you about that community service? What was it that said, you know, hey, Jamie's got to get out and do this stuff and be connected?
Well, I think a lot of people sit back and say, wow, I'd like to make a difference, or I'd like to do this and I'd like to get involved with that. But there's a difference from saying that you'd like to and actually getting your hands dirty and going out and doing these things. My little sister was born at 750 grams. And that was when I realized, you know what, life is really short and we should all just be lucky that we're here on this earth today. Mm-hmm. So when she was born, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, she's not going to make it, so spend as much time with her as you can. And then, you know what, she's actually a happy, healthy 9-year-old today, but it definitely made me realize life is very short, it's very unexpected, and there's so many people out there that are, you know, less fortunate than you are. Mm-hmm. And if you can assist in making their life a little bit better, then I think everybody should be helping out in that sense.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fantastic. You know, we talk about that a lot on Mornings with James, about community connection. And of course, we got into it big time yesterday with regards to the supervised consumption site and the difference that people can make just by getting together and even saying good morning. You know, sharing some water, you know, helping out those less fortunate, because, you know, a lot of times people forget that the situation those less fortunate people are in, it's not really a choice. And to get out of it, it's really, really hard. You know, it's funny because talking with Jill Manning from the supervised consumption site, talking about other addictions like smoking, for example. Well, why don't you just quit? Well, because it's hard. It's hard to do that. But the other thing too is there's a certain vulnerability with getting involved with these things. How do you deal with that? I mean, you're obviously a very confident person, but how do you deal with that vulnerability in going in and knowing that that cause that you support is an okay cause?
Well, I think for me, since I've been volunteering at the police station, vulnerability is something that I've really had to learn a lot with. As a victim advocate, we often help people in very traumatic situations, and then we often don't see them again after, because there's 50 different volunteers. You can never guarantee that you're going to talk to the same person. And I think that's a really good thing for the program, actually, because we are volunteers. It's important also not to get too connected in a situation, because you do have to go home and think, you know what, I did the very best I can in this situation, and at the end of the day, there's more that I could do. And then as long as you can take that home with you, then you won't feel too connected and too vulnerable and attached to the situation. And I think that's also quite important.
Yeah. Name a couple of the causes that you worked with internationally.
So actually the one that I worked with, the Indigenous group in San Clemente, that one was very much just out of the blue. There was a bunch of us from the U of L Board Ski and Surf Club actually out there surfing. And the group had come up to us and they said, you know what, you guys obviously really love the ocean, and we're here, we're here working against the nuclear center in San Clemente. Would you like to join our silent protest? And I was like, wow, that is incredible. Like, what are the odds? That was a situation that was very much, it was just meant to be. So I was very happy to be there, and I wanted to join their cause. So I joined in, and it was really cool learning about their community and their culture in that area as well. And, they blew the conch in the 7 directions, which was something I never even heard of,
Yeah.
I thought 4 directions, north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
So there was a lot about their culture that I was very happy to learn about, as well as it was really cool taking care of a site that I've spent so much time in. I go there every year with the U of L, so that was pretty cool. But I've also done a beach cleanup in Costa Rica, and I've also built a school in India. So,
yeah. Where were you in India?
So I was in a tribal community called Antri. There's, maybe 100 people there, maybe less than that.
Is that northern India?
Yeah, it's actually just a little bit west of Udaipur, which Udaipur is maybe a couple of hours from Pakistan.
Yeah,
so.
Jesse Palmer's in the studio helping out behind the scenes, and he's from India.
Yeah, Rajasthan, right?
Oh, yeah, so that's about where I was. Definitely, when I went, I did not realize how hot it was going to be there in May.
May in India, about 50, what is it, 50 degrees, Jesse? 50,
Yeah.
55 degrees. Wow.
That took some getting used to, for sure.
So you're traveling around and you're helping out with these great causes and these great organizations. Tell me a little bit about San Clemente, though, because didn't that have to deal with the effluent from the power plant
Yeah,
being dumped in the
absolutely.
ocean?
Yeah, and that was something that I wish I would have known a lot more about before going to the site, because we've been surfing there for years, as I've said, and we've never really looked into or heard of the repercussions from the nuclear site. And of course we see it every day there. It's right off the beach. Like, you cannot miss it on San Onofre. So I was not even aware that they were pondering, or maybe some spillage was going on about releasing nuclear waste into the ocean. I had no idea. And it's one of those things that I think these bigger corporations do a really good job of hiding.
Yeah.
So it was just such an opportunity to get to work with this Indigenous group that were so well connected with their community, and there was just so much I can learn and so much more I could learn. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so let's use that as an example. And you're a very proactive and interactive person, but how do you get to the point where you're making a difference? Now, I'm going to bring this around to the Lethbridge situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're talking about a lot of things that are outside of this, but how do you bring it around to make a difference? Now, the whole thing is we're having these huge debates, huge conversations, and I think people really want to be able to make a difference, but they don't know how. So, big nuclear power plant, big business, and you are a tiny bunch of ants being just really annoying. What do you do to make a difference there?
Well, I think it all starts with seeing a difference. So like I mentioned, the first place I volunteered was the Interfaith Food Bank. And that one I chose because my grandma worked there. But oftentimes people will choose to work with mental health, as that is a huge rising issue, especially in Lethbridge. But my first volunteer experience was working with Interfaith Food Bank, and that was one that I could physically see food going off the shelves into these hampers, into people's hands. So that was something for me that I could physically, I could repackage flour or something as simple as that, and I could see it go. now then when I started working with other organizations, when I was in India, you know, I can physically dig a trench to pour the
Yeah.
foundations of a school. So for me at first, I really needed to see the physical difference. And now working with, you know, with the Indigenous community and with that power plant, that was one that, of course, I wasn't there long enough to see if there was a difference, if there was something stopped. But you know what, if there's one mosquito in your house, you don't always notice. If there's 5 mosquitoes in your house, it starts to be annoying.
Yeah.
Now what if that house is a tent? Oh, you are up all night.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to, like, yes, I believe one person can make a difference, but if it's only one person, they really need a big voice. If you can get a group of friends together, if you can be those 5 mosquitoes, then you can make a big difference, and you can really turn some heads and get some people scratching their heads.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's, you know what, I love that. Now, let's apply that to Lethbridge. But let's keep it positive and constructive in the sense that a lot of the things that you talked about were reactive, and a lot of them were, you know, in some respects the school proactive, but definitely in the case of helping the less fortunate with the food bank, that is definitely reactive. Now, how do we address, for example, and now you're a 4th-year university student here in Lethbridge, right? And you plan to go into law?
Yes,
Did I
that's correct.
understand that correctly? Okay. So obviously you're an incredibly intelligent, incredibly creative person. Now, can we apply some of that intellect and intelligence to this particular situation? How do we find a reasonable solution, not only to the drug crisis in Lethbridge, but also to some of the concerns that are being voiced by some of the business people in Lethbridge around the supervised consumption site?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing in many proactive causes is education. I think if people knew more about it going into it, and especially with the safety consumption site, I don't think a lot of the community was as educated on what it was going to do or what was going to entail when it came up. And I think that really, you know, put a screwdriver in the situation. It kind of was a big wedge for some people.
Yeah.
So I think if we can go into situations with more educational background, that would be very incredible. And especially with the mental health situation, I think it would be very important if schools could be more proactive and even teach about how you could work out for even 30 minutes a day, and that could put you in a much better mood for the whole rest of your day.
Yeah. You know, you're right. There's so many things there. Talk about education. One of the big things, and we had Jill Manning on the program yesterday, with the supervised consumption site. Now, this is the big thing. First of all, people mistakenly called it a safe consumption site. There's nothing safe about it. It's a supervised consumption site. There's, you know, injection, inhalation, and a couple other different things that you can do there if you're in that sort of situation. I love the way Jill kind of expressed it. Education becomes a really tough thing in this area because people are so passionate. Even the comments that I got from various very good people on Facebook after the interview, you know, a lot of very, very upset people for good reason or not, because there's so much passion going on in this area. Education, yes. We had MLA Shannon Phillips on the program. When she talks from a provincial standpoint versus a local standpoint, Robin James coming on the program talking about housing situations here and what Lethbridge Housing Authority does. Education becomes a really, really complex thing because depending on who you get your information from, it's completely biased or it's completely loaded in one direction or the other. A lot of really good people, and this is where these complex issues become really hard to solve. You know, a lot of people were essentially, and you know, let's go to the Indigenous people. You have this power plant. Well, the power plant's there for a reason. Because people need power.
Absolutely.
So, if you are really proactive, and if they can't, you know, stop the flow of the, you know, whatever the effluent, the toxic effluent, and they have to shut the power plant down. So then, what do they do for power? Because there's two sides to every story. What happens then? Or is it a situation with the Indigenous people that power really doesn't matter because of where they're located?
Well, and in that situation, they weren't actually looking to shut down the nuclear power plant. What was happening was the plant was having some spillage, and that was the problem that they wanted to address. Obviously, when you're by the coast, a lot of people live off of, the fish.
Yeah.
In that sense. So they just wanted them to control the spillage. They weren't actually looking to shut it down. And so to relate that with the safe consumption site, I completely understand that education gets more and more difficult, and especially with today's media. But what we can do is we can have more, local media sources like Jess FM publishing facts, and we can get the scientific facts out there on why these things work or how they can contribute to the community. And I think if we can do that more and more, then people don't have to search out their own sources as much. And as a university student, of course, I know you can always find sources at a library or Google Scholar or wherever you want to look. But with today's media and with how big social media is for everybody today, it is very difficult to find true facts. And, there is a lot of...
Well, going into law, you're going to know
Yeah.
this. What is a truth for me and a truth for the businesses along First Avenue and Second Avenue South in the area of the supervised consumption site, what is truth there for them is going to vary from one group to another. What is a fact is a fact, and depending on how you kind of get your information, I love it when people say, it's a fact that supervised consumption sites save lives. They save money. It is a fact that if somebody, for example, contracts AIDS from dirty syringes because they don't have access to clean ones, and if I don't have the numbers right here, by all means correct me, but I believe it's in the order of somebody dealing with AIDS is going to cost the healthcare system $1 million. And to prevent that, education and a supply of clean needles prevents that $1 million drain. And that's just one, not 10, not 100. We're talking people using the supervised consumption site, number somewhere around 700. Up quite a bit from when they started in February. And the people that could make use of it, the number is actually higher because there are a lot of people who are maybe well off, and just the shame of going to the site is too much. So they basically do their drug use in their home, and that's where the overdoses happen and stuff. And that's according to Jill Manning yesterday. So how do you think education will change that? And then how important do you believe connection is in addressing the addiction issue? I realize I'm putting you on the spot here, but I welcome your response to those.
Oh, no, that's okay. So I think as far as what education can do, obviously, as you've mentioned, it is a very difficult one, getting the information out. I think if we can educate people more on what the consumption site is doing, as you guys have been working towards, especially yesterday with your air. And I think if we can work towards to tell people what good it's doing, we can put the positive message out there and try to take the negativity back and sort of understand it, look over it, and see what we can do to fix the negative situations.
Yeah.
I know a big concern for a lot of people is the needles ending up all over the city. So I know that the consumption site is also working towards not releasing as many needles. I know a lot of people had put them under fire for saying there was party packs or something.
Yeah,
in that
they
sense.
do call them party packs.
So I know that the consumption site was under a lot of fire for that, and I know they're also working towards to limit the amount of needles that are released into the community. But I think as far as what we can do right now is we can put those facts out there, the ones that that we are saving people's lives with this safe consumption site, and also just to show people that in the long run we are actually saving money for the community. And if we can put those out there, then maybe people can take a step back, analyze the situation, say, okay, well, they've changed this, and this since it's opened, and it was our very first one in town.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to come into town and fix a problem like that.
Yeah.
We're a small community at the end of the day. Of course, we're a city, but Lethbridge has a small town heart.
Yeah.
So we're not coming in here as perfectionists and have it all under situation. We do have to take in consideration that sometimes humans react differently in different situations. And so I think what the best thing we can do right now is just to listen to all the good that it's doing and helping to create more of that good.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, and I've advocated for this quite a bit. and you can tell we have a lot of smoke in the air, holy smokes, where people, they want to complain, yet they don't want to offer up solutions. In this particular situation, the supervised consumption site is not going away. It's not going away. Drug addiction is not going away, and until we address the causes behind them and the necessities for them, for supervised consumption sites, we're, as a community, we're never going to be able to move forward and find reasonable solutions. Mayor Chris Spearman, in a news interview yesterday, talking about the fact that maybe we need to create a space for these people to go afterwards, so they're not passing out on somebody's business frontage. Where they can go and they can be safe, watch TV and whatever. They can have a sober room, so to speak, or a sobering up facility. It's a great idea. People have talked about that before. Okay, so it's a great idea. Let's take it one step further, and let's have an action plan of some kind on that. And that way we're moving from complaining about something to making it happen. I think a lot of times we talk about, even the great things that you've done. We move from complaining about spillage from a nuclear power plant to voicing a concern, and then getting government agencies involved. All of a sudden, there's a huge difference.
Absolutely.
A really huge difference. And so, what is? I guess this is the thing, for our young viewers. Where do you find the courage and strength to do that?
Well, for a lot of these things, when you're first starting out, you're emailing your concerns, or you're posting your concerns on social media. And the thing about social media is, at the end of the day, you can post whatever you want, but you can also use it to be this bigger voice. That's something that's often, discussed in pageantry and many other facets of life, is whether social media is helping or harming our younger community.
Yeah.
And as long as we can use it to push our powerful messages, we can also use it to find other people that believe in our same ideas. And so with the idea that you could voice your opinion on a matter, and then other people could like it, or they could comment, wow, like, good for you, or I totally agree, or contribute as well themselves, you can find other people that have the same idea, that want to make the same change. So on the plus side of things, you could actually create groups strictly on what you think is an issue because of social media,
Yeah.
which is quite incredible. But there are also many other places you could volunteer, and there's many other ways you can help in the community. I don't think it really takes a lot of courage at the end of the day. I think it just takes a realization that, you take a step back and you go, wow, I've lived such a fortunate life. And there are so many people out there, whether they were raised less privileged, or whether, it's a situation anybody could be in.
Yep.
If you get laid off and you don't find another job with the insane economy we're in lately, that's a very real reality for a lot of people. So I think it also takes the realization that you can't belittle someone or think, oh, they're less fortunate. You have to think, wow, it's a roll of the dice. I could have been in that same situation. And I think that really helps motivate a lot of people to help out, because, there's no difference. Poverty doesn't pick and choose.
No. And, drug addiction, it doesn't matter how well off you are, or how well off you are not. Addiction exists in all facets. I think sometimes we need to really change how we think about addiction, because whether it's drug addiction, which is killing so many of our great citizens, or alcohol addiction, sugar addiction, tobacco addiction, it's still addiction. But here's the thing, and this is we'll kind of get a little bit more we'll get to the finer detail on it. What is it inside you that leads you to this conviction that this is the right thing for you to do? In a time where, obviously you're a very beautiful young woman, and pageants have come under fire. The swimsuit editions have been kind of negated and what have you, because of the whole notion that, we've got to stop having this iconic image of what women should be, and we've got to start focusing on the intellect. It's you're this pageant winner, and you're still doing a lot of good, and you're connecting with a lot of people, but still it's a very complex thing. how do you ration that? And people go like, okay, well, yeah, okay, beautiful young woman. Well, this is the whole thing we're trying to get away from, and yet you're still out there connecting and doing all this good stuff. Where do you find that inner strength that says, I'm right doing this?
For sure. So and as I've said, I don't think it really takes a huge strength to volunteer. There are so many organizations, and you could just dabble in a couple. There's no perfect organization that's just going to jump out to you. Oftentimes you have to go out and, you need to put yourself forward. If you think it could happen to me and I want to make a difference, I think anybody could get involved. It's just a matter of finding what's going to work best for you.
Yeah.
So Lethbridge has tons and tons of volunteering opportunities. And I encourage anyone to just, go and visit some of these agencies, see what their values are about, and see if maybe that would be a good fit for you. Especially for university students, I think it's very difficult to get involved because you have so much on your plate already.
Yeah.
My boyfriend actually, he really wants a dog, but my mom's allergic and I still want her to visit me, so we can't get a dog. So then for him, the perfect agency for him to volunteer with was the Humane Society.
Nice.
Because then
Good
he
fit.
still gets to, hang out with the dogs he wants to see. So a lot of the time there can be a benefit to people who want to volunteer for somebody whose girlfriend won't let him get a dog, but you want to hang out with dogs. You can definitely find something that fits for everybody. And it's a matter of putting your foot out there and, where do you start?
Yeah. The biggest thing is knowing that you can make a difference and that you can get connected. And really, that's what we're talking about. When I was hosting the Man Float in the parade on Tuesday, I was talking about how beautiful the parade was for so many people coming together, so many different aspects of our community right there, sitting side by side. And it's that kind of connection I think we need so much more of. And you share a beautiful, wonderful message, and I really appreciate that. Jamie, thank you very much for coming on the program. Jamie Vandenberg, Miss Earth Canada. Are there more pageants coming up for you?
Yeah, I'm competing in Miss Earth. I'm representing Canada and the Philippines, competing from October 6th to November 4th.
Wow. All the best of luck. You are a true inspiration. I thank you very much for being on the program this morning. Mornings with James, we'll be back with you next week. I'll tell you what, get connected. As Jamie said, get connected, volunteer, support, be that voice. Connect with others who have that voice, and maybe we can find solutions together. When we're connected, when we're part of that community, we are always so much stronger. So until we get a chance to chat again, stay inspired. Bye for now. Jamie, thank you very much. Jesse, thank you for helping out in the background. Have yourself an amazing